Good evening. Thanks for joining us on India Business Hour. I'm Shereen Bhan. The headlines we're tracking for you tonight. Infosys reports a shocker in Q4. Revenues declined by over 3%, marking the worst pace of growth in over 10 years. CEO Salil Parekh blames unplanned ramp downs in spending by clients across many sectors, calls it a one-time impact. Infosys and TCS turn cautious as both companies see growth moderate to pre-pandemic levels. TCS sees a marginal addition to headcount, while Infosys sees total employee count reduced by more than 3,600 in Q4. Amazon CEO Andy Jassy says layoffs and cost-cutting efforts made 2022 the most challenging period in the history of the online retailer. Hopes the efforts will bring costs under control, remains upbeat on the future prospects for Amazon. With days to go for Apple CEO Tim Cook's proposed India visit, some government departments are favourably considering a cut in customs duty for high-end phones and components, but the Finance Ministry is not actively considering the matter yet. The first Apple store in Mumbai and Delhi are set to open next week. Shares of Chinese tech giant Alibaba tumble after regulatory filings show SoftBank's sold stake worth more than $7 billion. SoftBank now holds less than 4% in Alibaba compared to the 25% stake it held 3 years ago. The number of women investing in mutual funds increased by nearly 60% in the last 3 years. That's as per the data from the Mutual Fund Association. Women investors under the age of 24 grew more than fourfold. Indian air cargo players seek a level playing field with foreign companies who control 95% of India's international cargo volumes, call for government policies to bring in more domestic players and help existing players expand their capacity. Enforcement Directorate is probing the BBC for allegedly violating foreign exchange rules. This is a second probe against the global media outlet after the Income Tax Department searched its offices in February this year for alleged transfer pricing violations. In a bid to shore up footfalls, PVR Inox introduces the screening of movie trailers for 30 minutes at the cost of ₹1. Footfalls are down 15% in the first 9 months of FY23 compared to pre-COVID levels. More than 2.3 crore people tune in to watch the IPL match between Chennai and Rajasthan on Jio Cinema, the highest viewership recorded on digital platforms for an IPL match, beating the finals of the 2019 season. Luxury automaker Lamborghini has launched a sports utility vehicle in India. The car will cost you more than 4 crore rupees. Well, the top story this evening, it is a shocker of an earnings from Infosys, the IT giant's margins coming in below expectations. Revenue on constant currency terms fell over 3% compared to the last quarter, making this the worst decline that the company has seen in a decade. This has led to Infosys missing its revenue guidance for FY23. My colleague Ritu Singh spoke with the CEO Salil Parekh on the Q4 earnings and the factors behind the disappointing quarter.
For the quarter Q4, what we saw is during the quarter, there were some clients where we saw ramp downs, and then there were some areas where we saw one-time situations. As Nilanjan had shared, the bulk of the impact in the quarter was from the ramp downs that we saw during the quarter. Having said that, we have an extremely strong large deal pipeline. We have some deals which are mega deals in the pipeline.
First, when you say ramp downs, specifically where has that been, and have there also been cancellations of orders, if any, and why are you so confident it's only a one-time thing when you say the environment is so uncertain?
So there are two aspects to it. So one, on the ramp downs, there have been with some clients in the telco sector, in the high-tech sector, in retail, and in financial services, in mortgages, asset management and investment banking. So those ramp downs, we saw some stabilization in March, but the demand environment is uncertain. So we will see how that plays out as we go ahead. And that's the way we see that.
Well, that is Salil Parekh of Infosys explaining what went wrong in Q4. So how has Infosys performed in comparison to TCS? Remember, it was a disappointing quarter for TCS as well. Rima standing by with the details on the back of the management commentary that's come in from both companies. Rima.
So TCS was a miss on revenues and margins, but Infosys was a howler. It was a shocker. It was a big miss on both revenues and margins. Let's run you through the key numbers this time. Now, on the top line, the constant currency revenue growth, the number to focus on is minus 3.2% by Infosys. There was no estimate on the street which expected a big decline of more than 3%. TCS also missed the mark, just a 0.6% growth, but at least they managed to clock in a bit of a modest growth. Infosys' decline of minus 3.2% is the worst that I've seen at least in 10 years. And even in COVID, post-COVID, there were 2 quarters where Infosys revenues had declined. But even at that time, the revenue decline in Infosys was not this significant. Margin performance too, for both Infi and TCS was a miss. For TCS, margins were flat. The hope was for margin expansion. For Infosys, the hope was margins will be flat, but they actually declined by 50 basis points. Now let's move on to the outlook, the FY24 guidance by Infosys. There are just 2 IT companies who give you a numerical guidance. One is Infi and the other one is HCL Tech, which is why we look at Infosys guidance so closely. 4 to 7%. And look at the big come-off compared to the kind of growth it's clocked in FY23. Margins of 20 to 22% versus 21%. Both these parameters have come in lower than expectations. Remember that last year, that's FY23, the companies footed a very large wage bill on account of bonuses, the war for talent, the need to hire, premium subcontracting costs, greater subcontracting costs of premium laterals, as a result of which the cost had ballooned. The expectation was that next year, FY24, the supply side situation will start easing because companies have stopped hiring. In the case of Infosys, their headcount has actually come down. Attrition is easing. So therefore, margins should have improved. But going by the guidance, it doesn't look like margins are improving. Now, let's tell you what went wrong this time. In the case of TCS's North America business, the management clearly said that at the beginning of the quarter, we were anticipating North America to grow. But North America declined by 0.8% on a quarter-on-quarter basis. Discretionary spends were put on hold. In the case of Infosys, the company said that it was not just BFSI. They saw unplanned project ramp downs in other verticals as well. So the problem isn't just with BFSI. They saw it in the case of telco, high-tech, retail. In particular, in mortgages, they also saw it in asset management, investment banking. They spoke about project cancellations as well and some client-specific issues. And the management also went on to say that while they've seen some stabilization in the environment in the month of March, it's still very uncertain. The hiring numbers also give you an indication of the demand trends. In the case of Infosys, the headcount has actually fallen by 3,600 on a quarter-on-quarter basis, while attrition, that's the silver lining. There are 2 silver linings. Attrition is falling, and the other one is the order book number, and attrition has come down. A quick word on the valuations as well as where the stocks and how they've currently positioned. Well, between the two, Infi has actually underperformed the Nifty IT index, and TCS is down 8%, but it's still trading at a valuation of 21 times.
Rima, many thanks for wrapping that up. That's the report card. Infosys and TCS out. We are now, of course, awaiting HCL Tech and Wipro. Outgoing CEO Rajesh Gopinathan admitted that revenue growth was a third of what they were anticipating, and the slowdown in North America was unexpected.
Later part of the quarter, because of the uncertainty that came around the BFSI sector and its implications on the overall macroeconomic setup. That's where the miss in terms of what we were expecting versus what North America has been growing very strongly for us. If you look over the last 8 quarters, for the first time in a long time after the pandemic, we have actually had a sequential degrowth in North America. So we were thinking that the quarter should come in at somewhere in the 1.5 to 2% range. That would have also met the other side of it. It has come in at 0.6. So that's the extent of the miss. And almost entirely, I would say that I would think North America is where the shift is.
It's Rajesh Gopinathan there of TCS. Speaking of technology, Amazon CEO Andy Jassy has reflected on a tough 2022 for the company in a letter to shareholders. Jassy's called the year the most challenging in Amazon's history after it laid off more than 27,000 employees. Jassy hopes the efforts undertaken will bring costs under control. He remains upbeat on the future prospects for the company.
The fact that we were able to innovate across all our businesses, which will impact both the short and long term, and the fact that we have changed the way that we're going to invent and collaborate together by getting into the office more, and the fact that we were able to meaningfully streamline our costs while at the same time preserving the strategic long-term investments that we believe can meaningfully change customer experiences in Amazon for the long term. I think we have a lot to look forward to. On the enterprise side, most companies are trying to find ways in an uncertain economy to save money however they can, and that impacts in our enterprise business. It impacts things like advertising, as you see around the industry, but also in people's technology infrastructure spend. And so we're trying to build a set of customer relationships in a business that outlasts all of us and are not optimized for any one quarter or a year. We're spending most of our time trying to help our customers save money. I've said it a couple times that having to reduce 27,000 roles was the hardest thing I've had to do in my career and professionally, and very difficult to do. And it's, there's no equation on what the right amount of streamlining is. Otherwise, it would be much easier for people to think it through. I think it's a pretty good balance, and we don't have an intention of doing anything more meaningful, but any responsible leadership team will keep looking at their business and the economy and proceed adaptively.
Well, that's Amazon CEO Andy Jassy. Let's move now to the market action. The Sensex and the Nifty ending in the green for the 9th trading session, marking the longest winning streak since October of 2020. However, the gains were limited despite a sharp rally that we saw in bank stocks. IT stocks saw a sell-off after disappointing earnings from TCS. For the week, the Sensex and the Nifty gained over 1%. Now, Indian companies may not maintain the growth rate that they enjoyed over the last few quarters and could see a sharp fall. This as per CRISIL report. The revenue growth rate is likely to have halved to 10 to 12% in Q4 from nearly 23% in the same quarter last fiscal. CRISIL estimates revenue to grow at 19 to 21% in FY23, slower than the 27% growth reported in FY22. The revenue for Indian companies is expected to be around 45 lakh crore rupees in FY23. In addition, the rating firm estimates the growth rate to be at 10 to 12% in FY24, which is nearly half of the growth rate pegged in FY23. Now, some government departments are favourably considering a cut in customs duty for high-end phones and components. This comes ahead of Apple CEO Tim Cook's proposed India visit and the inauguration of Apple's retail stores in Mumbai and Delhi. The Finance Ministry, however, is not actively considering the matter yet, is what we're given to understand. Parikshit Luthra is standing by with more details. Parikshit, this has, of course, been a long-standing demand of industry. In some quarters within government, this proposal seems to have been given some weight, but of course, the final call is yet to be taken.
Over the last few months, the Indian government has been urging Apple to manufacture more in India, indigenize more in India, and also to move more manufacturing from China to India as well. Now, as part of that move, some quarters in the government, some government departments are favouring a duty concession, a reduction of basic customs duty from 20% currently. And there have been industry demands on that. Let's see what happens on that front. What we are also hearing that that certain government departments are keen on reducing customs duty on certain mobile phone components to increase local manufacturing. All this could benefit Apple, but we have been told by our sources in the Finance Ministry that such a move is not under active consideration just yet. So let's see what happens on that front. Having said that, what would India want to know from Apple next week? Now, if Tim Cook is here in India and there is an Apple delegation, we would like to know how much and what is exact roadmap that Apple has for India post the PLI incentives coming to an end in 2026 and 2027. How much are they indigenizing right now, and what will it take for them to start manufacturing iPads and the Apple 14 Pro and the 14 Pro Max in India? So let's see what happens next week.
Yes, we will have to wait to see. And of course, Apple not yet confirming whether Tim Cook is indeed going to be in India or not. More news from the tech giant. Apple has tripled its iPhone production in India, crossing the $7 billion milestone. That's as per a Bloomberg report. This brings Apple's production in India to about 7% from 1% in 2021. The jump in the Indian output comes at a time when Apple is looking to cut its reliance on China. Shares of Alibaba under pressure after SoftBank sold stake worth more than $7 billion via prepaid forward contracts. After the sale, SoftBank will maintain less than 4% stake in Alibaba. India's overall auto sales in FY23 jumped 20% year-on-year to over 2 crore units. That's as per the data released by the Society of Indian Automobile Manufacturers, or SIAM. Passenger vehicle sales grew 26%. Commercial vehicle sales increased over 35%. However, exports declined 26% owing to a sharp fall in two-wheeler and three-wheeler exports. In other news, the CEO of Zee Entertainment, Puneet Goenka, has settled an insider trading case with SEBI. Goenka paid 50 lakh rupees to the market regulator, and all proceedings against him have now been disposed, and no further enforcement actions will be initiated against him. Goenka was accused of violating the provisions of insider trading regulations between September 2019 and December 2020 for failing to identify the launch of Zeeplex, a pay-per-view service. The market regulator determined this to be price-sensitive information. The Reserve Bank has approved the reappointment of Sanjay Agarwal as the MD and CEO of AU Small Finance Bank. Uttam Tibrewal has also been reappointed as whole-time director. The extended term for both will end in April 2026. Post the RBI approval, the stock price moved higher by almost 15% today. In a bid to stop banks from overcharging borrowers in the guise of penal interest rates, the Reserve Bank has released draft guidelines to protect defaulters. The instructions prevent lenders from using penal charges as revenue enforcement enhancement tools by disallowing the addition of components to the interest rate. Serum Institute of India has restarted the production of COVID-19 vaccine Covishield as cases of COVID rise. This according to the company's CEO Adar Poonawalla, who said the institute will make 6 to 7 million vaccine doses available in 90 days. Poonawalla also said there is no vaccine shortage, contrary to reports, and maintained that there has been no demand despite ample supply. Remember, the company had stopped manufacturing Covishield in December of 2021. Well, earlier this month, SpiceJet hived off its cargo business into a separate entity called Spice Express, narrowing its focus on air cargo. A deeper look at this market shows that India's international air cargo is almost entirely dominated by foreign operators, and Indian players hold a meager 5 to 6% share. What are the reasons behind this huge gap, and what can be done to improve it? Madiha Mujawar explains in this edition of the CNBC-TV18 Clutter Breakers.
Let me start with a wider view of the size and scale of India's air cargo market. The country's total inward and outward shipments stood at 3.14 million tons in FY22, and the volumes are expected to remain the same for FY23 as demand is yet to bounce back to pre-COVID levels. Of the 3.14 million tons, 1.29 million tons were domestic cargo and 1.84 million tons were international cargo. And of the 1.84 million tons of international cargo, a lion's share is taken by foreign air operators who control around 94 to 95% of the market, and the remaining 5 to 6% that domestic players handle is also largely done through the belly space of wide-body passenger aircraft, mostly by carriers like Air India and Vistara. So what is leading to this huge gap? The key reason is Indian air cargo airlines can't carry cargo for long and ultra-long haul destinations due to the lack of dedicated wide-body freighter aircraft, and this is where foreign players come into the picture and dominate the Indian air cargo space. Apart from carrying cargo in the aircraft belly, there are dedicated foreign freight carriers, and look at their fleet. FedEx has over 400 aircraft, United Parcel Service has 290 planes, DHL has 215, Qatar has 27, Emirates has 11 freighter aircraft, and most of these are wide-body planes. Now, Indian carriers, meanwhile, have only 14 dedicated freighter aircraft, and all of them are narrow-body planes, which means they can't fly to destinations like the US and Europe. Now, while this is a major limitation, the domestic industry claims they don't have a level playing field to compete with the foreign giants. So what exactly are their complaints? Number one, they say Indian air cargo operator has to pay a hefty customs duty for leased aircraft registered in India. Second, Indian cargo airlines are not allowed to operate aircraft that are over 20 years old, but at the same time, foreign airlines are allowed to fly into India with aircraft that are over 20 years old. Apart from these issues, domestic players want the government to create a dedicated airport to handle all kinds of cargo and introduce a unified customs policy across airports for faster clearance of shipments. They also want the government to bring a transshipment policy to ease the transport process and make India an international hub for air cargo transport. Now, the government has set an ambitious target of taking India's air cargo to 10 million tons by 2030. Industry representatives tell me the government will have to make policies that will bring more players into the market and help existing operators expand their capacity to achieve this target.
Madiha, many thanks for joining us. The number of women investing in mutual funds has increased by nearly 60% in the last 3 years. This as per the data from the Mutual Funds Association. The number of women investors on the basis of PAN numbers has increased from just under 47 lakh to nearly 75 lakh. Women investors under the age of 24 grew more than fourfold from just over 66,000 in 2019 to more than 2.8 lakh in 2022. So that's certainly good news coming in there. Time for us to head into a break, but up next, in a bid to shore up footfalls, PVR and Inox introduced the screening of movie trailers for 30 minutes at the cost of 1 rupee. Will it work? Details when we return.
Even in the hottest summers, its sustainable technologies help fight climate change and protect our planet. General, the extreme machine.
More than 2.3 crore people tuned in to watch the IPL match between Chennai and Rajasthan on Jio Cinema. This is the highest viewership recorded on digital platforms for any IPL match, beating the IPL finals of the 2019 season. Anil Jairaj, the CEO of Sports at Viacom18, spoke with Shivani Garat on the record numbers and what he expects from the IPL final this year.
The game yesterday was obviously extremely exciting. But if you see the numbers, this is now at 2.23 crores, which was yesterday's concurrency. And that beat the last record by a significant margin. Last highest, as you mentioned, was about 1.86 crores.
And that was the final match.
It is. And very importantly, I think what's also happening is that this is possibly just the beginning. From all that we've seen, all the excitement that we see on the ground, we're pretty certain that this is one of the many records that will happen this season.
A month to go for the finals. What is the magic number that you are targeting, Anil, in terms of viewership?
So I would be delighted when we break the 2.75 million number. And the reason it is that the last world record was 2.54 crore in terms of concurrency. If we can get to 2.75 crores, it distinctly beats the last one by 10% or more. And that's what I'm hoping. I'm hoping that all the exciting IPL games will help us achieve that. And that's something that I'll celebrate. More importantly, I'll also celebrate once we hit 500 advertisers, which is the target that we have set ourselves, saying that, look, anywhere upwards of 500 is what we should hit. And, thanks to all our Bhojpuri, Punjabi sort of feeds, we believe this is very, very much possible. We are on target for that.
Well, that is Jio Cinemas on the record-breaking IPL numbers. Now, automobile company Lamborghini has launched the 2023 Urus S in India with prices starting at 4.18 crore rupees. Now, the new super sports utility vehicle replaces the standard Urus previously available in India. Yash was at the launch earlier today. Here's a glimpse of the unveiling.
The bull that you see behind me is the latest offering from the house of Lamborghini. The new Lamborghini Urus S comes with about 666 horsepower, a facelift to the old Lamborghini Urus, which had about 650 horsepower. As far as the design is concerned, it's a completely new design, a new bonnet, inside which sits 4-liter V8 twin-turbo engine, producing 850 Nm torque. What does that do? 0 to 100 in about 3.5 seconds. 0 to 200 in about 12.5 seconds, maximum speed of 305 kilometers per hour. The colors, especially of the cars, are customizable. The price of the car starts at about 3.8 crore ex-showroom price. Well, the exteriors of the car undoubtedly look very stylish, sophisticated and sporty at the same time, with the piano black finish that sort of stretches across the car, different touch points of it. As far as the trunk capacity is concerned, 616 liters boot space as far as the car is concerned. As far as fuel capacity is concerned, it takes about 85 liters in one go. Well, on the interior, the first thing that catches your eye are the leather seats and the stitching here, which again, let me tell you, is customizable to the color of the car. Other than that, of course, there is the usual Lamborghini fighter jet-like knob to start the car. Also, as far as the driving experience is concerned, it comes with 6 modes. What is special about them is that there are 3 special modes for off-road. One is for snow, rough, as well as sand, to make a very customizable driving experience as well. Well, all in all, a super luxury and a super stylish car from the house of Lamborghini, with a very evident sporty edge. The power as far as the car is concerned is sure to blow anybody's mind, and with the new Urus S, Lamborghini has added a very, very important element to its super SUV series.
Well, from a 4 crore rupee car to a 1 rupee movie ticket, PVR Inox has introduced screening of movie trailers for 30 minutes at the cost of a rupee in a bid to shore up footfalls. This comes at a time when multiplexes are grappling with poor occupancy. The multiplex giant has seen a 15% fall in its footfalls in the first 9 months of the last fiscal year compared to pre-COVID levels. Shilpa has more.
Imagine this. You come to the theatres to watch a 30-minute show filled with trailers of movies in Hindi, English and your regional languages to give you a sneak peek of the movies that are lined up over the next couple of months. Well, that is what PVR Inox has launched in the form of a 30-minute trailer shows in its screens across the country. But what is the idea behind such an offering, and will this actually bring more people back to the movies? Let's take a look.
Trailers is all about sampling a film. Now, if you like the sample of what you've seen, we believe that it would end up getting us a lot of footfalls, additional footfalls to the cinemas and for the movie.
And PVR Inox has priced the ticket at just 1 rupee per show, which will be slotted around prime time.
Ticket pricing, we debated a lot. Should it be 25 rupees? Should it be 50 rupees? Should it be 10 rupees? And finally, we thought that at least for the next couple of months, we should focus on rolling the red carpet virtually free of cost for the consumers to come in and enjoy the trailers.
The 30-minute trailer show first ran as a pilot across various screens in India, except in Telangana, Andhra Pradesh and Tamil Nadu over the past 1 week. And the company says it saw 36,000 people coming to watch this 30-minute show with an occupancy level of up to 35%.
Actually, it helped us to decide what all movies we can watch this year. Okay. That was a great help.
We just made a bit of full list of what are the movies we are going to see. It tells us about the more upcoming movies. Like that's the main thing.
Yeah.
So and yeah, more of the things, like we didn't even knew the Shah Rukh Khan's movie is coming. Tom Cruise movies is coming. Yeah, that's really news for me.
This offering comes at a time when footfalls at the cinemas have continued to remain muted, despite the likes of Pathan and Bola clocking healthy box office numbers. Experts, however, are not sold on the idea and don't see this improving footfalls or F&B sales for the company significantly.
I would not call it a desperate attempt, but an attempt basically, just to, get footfalls on board. But it's going to be a challenge because we don't know in terms of how many people will actually come to watch trailers free of cost, firstly. Generally, most of these screens have got, 5 shows on a per screen basis. So if you have these trailers, being played, you will see a disruption in terms of number of shows, which will bring down the overall operating efficiency. And second thing is that if at all this audience who comes to watch trailers at 1 rupee, if they don't end up buying food products, then I think it's a loss-making proposition on an overall basis.
But PVR Inox is confident that despite a slowdown in footfalls currently, the upcoming Salman Khan movie and the lineup of movies starting mid-May to June will bring a huge number of consumers back to the cinemas. PVR Inox will now make tickets available for this 30-minute trailer show on ticketing platforms like Book My Show and Paytm, and hopes that this will improve occupancy levels for this particular show to 50 to 55% and also improve footfalls for movies that go beyond just the big names. In Mumbai, Shilpa Ranipeta.
Well, not a movie. Watch the trailers instead for ₹1. With that, it is time for us to wrap up this edition of India Business Hour. Thanks very much for watching.